Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission.
Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Here now is your host, Chad Amond, President and CEO of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce.
Hello and welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections. I'm your host, President of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce, Chad Amond. I am delighted to have on the show today a friend, a colleague in the not-for-profit world, Dan Giovannelli, who is the Executive Director of the Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity. Dan, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Chad. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I guess whenever we're talking with Westmoreland Community Connections, I always start off the show by asking the guest to give a little bit of their background. You know, how did you get into the world that you are? You know, go back from where did you grow up to where did you go to school, and how did you get to Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity?
Absolutely. So, grew up on Western Pennsylvania through and through. Grew up in Zelienople, north of Pittsburgh. Spent the better part of a decade at the University of Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, and we lived and worked there until the University of Pittsburgh-Greensburg brought my wife out to Westmoreland County a few years ago, and we made the jump, and I made the transition from a nonprofit job in Pittsburgh doing education work to coming out here and building some houses.
Yeah, right. Well, I guess one of the fundamental pieces for Habitat for Humanity is everyone deserves a place to call home, right?
Absolutely.
And so let's get into the mission of Habitat for Humanity and what exactly does Habitat for Humanity do? Okay.
So you really hit the nail on the head on the starting point, Chad. You know, our basic premise is everyone deserves a decent place to call home. That's a period, end of sentence. There's no qualification necessary on that. So there's a couple ways we look at that. There's lots of hardworking families out there that, for whatever reason, aren't able to purchase a home. We see home ownership as a key component of financial and family stability over the long term. So we have a home ownership program that helps to support families secure a home that they own, a home that they buy and they're paying a mortgage on, but a home that's theirs.
So this isn't a home that they actually end up purchasing
Absolutely.
the home and they own the home, correct?
Yes, along with the idea that everyone deserves a house is the idea that everyone can work towards it, and with some support, everyone can make that happen for themselves. You know, through shelter, we empower is one of our lines we use a lot. So we work with the family. We help support them so it's more affordable, so they can get something that they may not be able to get walking into a real estate agent's office, walking into a bank's office. We support them, we work with them, but yes, absolutely, they purchase it, they pay a mortgage either to us or one of our bank partners, and that's just like everybody else. They pay taxes on it, they pay insurance on it, and if they stop doing that, it's not going to be their home much longer.
Right. Well, but you rebuild and refurbish homes for do the families that purchase your homes, do they have to qualify as low income?
Yes.
Or how does that part of it work?
Okay, so I'll take it back to the beginning. So Habitat builds or rehabs houses. Here in Westmoreland County, we have loads and loads of old housing stock. Right. So mostly we rehab. For us, being a good community partner, it makes more sense to rehabilitate a blighted house that's been abandoned than to build a new one down the street. So we take over blighted housing, usually working with the Westmoreland County Land Bank. Sometimes property owners call us up and want to donate something that's not the right fit for their family or they inherited unexpectedly. So we take a house that's in really, really sorry shape, and we put a lot of work into it with volunteers. We have a contractor on staff, volunteers from all over the community, from college students, church groups, businesses, and the families themselves. Come in, we rehab the house, we make it nice and brand new. You know, this isn't a cheap flip job. It's a house that anyone could be proud of.
And that enhances our communities as well.
Absolutely.
Because if you have a blighted home that is is falling apart, and
Certainly.
and Habitat comes in and they enhance that community. That's an enhancement for all of the people that are living in that neighborhood as well.
Definitely. These aren't houses that are ripe for a commercial investor. They've been blighted and typically abandoned for a number of years. There's variation, of course, but typically abandoned for years. They are so far gone, no private developer could hope to turn them into a rental or flip it and make a cent on it. So it's houses that are really sitting there and getting worse, and eventually somebody's going to have to fork up a big check to demo them, and then you have an empty lot that's not in much better shape. So by our use of volunteers and donated material, we're able to come in, rehab the house, make it safe, make it nice, make it, again, the goal is really something that's simple and decent, but something that you can be proud of.
You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We're talking with Dan Giovannelli, Executive Director of Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity. Dan, when you talk about the homes that you are rehabilitating, those low income families that are getting that step, do you have any programs that are, even a mortgage, it can be expensive. Do you have any special programs with the mortgages that they can attain?
We do. So families that are in search of housing, it's a low-income program, as you said, Chad. We're looking at three basic things when a family reaches out to us. And we are accepting applications, so if this sounds like it might be the right fit for you or someone you know, please have them reach out to us. So our three basic things we're looking at is a need for housing. That's usually pretty straightforward. The second thing are some income guidelines. It is a low-income program, but we do sell the house, so the family has to have some kind of secure income. We're much more flexible than a bank on traditional lending, but this is a program where the family buys the house and pays a mortgage, so we have to be able to believe that's a possibility. If we help place a family that can't afford it into a house, even a subsidized house, that's not going to end them in a better situation than they are. So that's an important criteria. Then the third one we just call a willingness to partner. There's two big elements there. One is just kind of an understanding that we're not a real estate agency with endless housing stock.
Right.
We're a small organization. We're a charity. We have a handful of houses a year. Then the other end of that is our volunteer requirement. Families have to volunteer 350 hours with us. That includes a chunk of time in financial education. That includes a chunk of time in homeowner education. And that includes at least 100 hours involved in construction, either on their house or somebody else's house, kind of that pay it forward idea.
Do you get the sense that one of the reasons why people love Habitat for Humanity so much is because while you are still doing great things for low-income families, you're making those families, you said, what, 350 hours of volunteer work that they have to work on the house that you are helping to refurbish for them, and you also are making them put some skin in the game.
Absolutely. That's an important component. We see it as a hand up, not a handout, in that with some support, just about anybody can be a homeowner. It does take some support for folks. There's people are in all kinds of different situations and sometimes very, very challenging situations. So we want to be able to partner with a family and partner in a meaningful way so we can help provide the support they need to make homeownership a reality for their family.
So you guys have, from what I understand, wrapping up construction on 3 houses
Yes.
in the central part of the county, 2 in Greensburg and 1 in Jeanette. Are you accepting applications
We
for
are.
those houses right now? And how was that? Were the families, or how did the families get involved and meet those 350 hours of participation?
There's some flexibility on it. So as you said, we're wrapping up construction on 3 houses. It's always a little bit of a timing challenge. We want families applying in and construction going on at the same time. So sometimes the families come into the process when we start construction. Sometimes we're further along in construction, just on the odds when applications come in. So we're absolutely accepting applications now. Those 3 houses, the ones in Greensburg are 2-bedroom, 1 bath. The one in Jeanette is 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 1 real bathroom and a Pittsburgh toilet.
All right.
But real nice houses, great location. I think very quiet street in Jeanette. The houses in Greensburg are next to each other, very close to Westmoreland Hospital. Great little houses. So for the volunteer time, if when we get an application, we bring families in, we'll get them going right away on that house. We'll get them volunteering in whatever other capacity makes sense. But then if construction outruns the volunteer time, we have some finishing up to do, but if construction outruns the volunteer time, we'll put them to work on some other things so we can time it to move in. And frankly, even when construction's done, we're still selling a house. The paperwork takes some time, if nothing else.
Right. We talk about a lot of families. Obviously, Westmoreland County has an aging population. We have more seniors than we do have young people. Are the seniors able to
Absolutely
participate in this as well?
Yes, we define family without any criteria.
Okay.
So it's whoever comes to us as they come to us. We look at the other things, the need for housing, the income guidelines, the willingness to partner. What the composition of the family is, frankly, only matters to us in that the house that we're looking at would be adequate to fill their needs. We won't place somebody in a house that's still insufficient for their needs.
We're talking with Dan Giovannelli, Executive Director of the Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Dan, when we get back from the break, I want to talk a little bit about the fundraising that helps to keep Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity in operating, and give us a little bit of a teaser of that of what you do at the WOW outlets.
Certainly. So we are a charity. We're not part of the government. We fundraise all of our money out of Westmoreland County. Some of that is all of the things you're used to seeing from a charity, but a big part of that is our thrift store, the warehouse outlets that is located in the WOW Outlets Plaza.
You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We'll be right back after these messages to talk a little bit more with Dan Giovannelli, Executive Director of Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity.
This is Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. If you have a suggestion for a topic, or if your nonprofit organization would like to be featured on this program, call us during regular business hours at 724-216-1200.
Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission.
Welcome back. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We're talking with Dan Giovannelli, Executive Director of the Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity. Dan, before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about the fundraising, but I want to get back to, for the listeners, of the mortgage part of it. Explain how you work with the families that Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity serves, having them own their house.
That's perfect. So we talk about home ownership and a hand up, not a handout. So one of the big questions we always get is, well, what does that really mean? So if you have a family in need, how are they buying a house? What does this look like? What are some of the details? So I apologize for some boring coming your way, but so when we partner with a family, we look at an income range. So a family that's low income, but their income is sufficient that it's likely to be able to support a subsidized mortgage along with things, like groceries, medical bills. So in specifics, we're talking about between 30 and 80% of the area median income, which is kind of a brutal phrase to use. That's something, and it's based on household size, so I can't give you numbers off the top of my head, but if you punch that into the Google, there's charts for every county in the United States. They'll tell you what those ranges are. So again, but the broad is kind of an income that you would be, even at the top end of it, you would have a really hard time walking into a bank and getting a mortgage. But at the bottom end, you still are able to pay an affordable mortgage and pay for basic life necessities. So that's the cross-section of who comes into the program. So how do we do it? We do a reduced down payment. Often we finance the closing costs. But then the doozy that makes it affordable is that our mortgages are either zero interest written by Habitat itself, so we originate mortgages, and when we do that, we write them with zero interest. Sometimes we work with a bank partner. In those instances, we subsidize the interest. Mm-hmm. The bank has to charge some interest to cover their bank. That's what they do. They got to be able to cover their cost. But in those cases, we subsidize the interest. The fancy name we use for it is zero equivalent mortgage because the family isn't paying interest. We're covering it on the front end for them. So if you think about that, that alone right there makes a mortgage tremendously more affordable. If you have a mortgage, look at your next monthly statement. It will be a horrifying moment, but over the term of that mortgage, you're paying a lot more to the bank in interest than you ever are paying in the principal of the house. So that alone makes it affordable for a lot of families. Now, the numbers vary, so what we do is we peg the payment to what the person's income is. It's a formula. So the feds say about 30% of your income is what you should be spending, no more than you should be spending on housing every month. So we play with the numbers a little bit. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it's a formula. We calculate out what the family can afford with their income and their debt load, and we figure out a number that is affordable for them, and we figure out a mortgage that works, whether or not we write it or one of our bank partners write it.
Right. Well, to subsidize that mortgage to get off the interest, you obviously, as Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity, you have to have some funds in your bank account. And so how do those funds raise? We, before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about, we were throwing out a teaser of the WOW outlets. You have the warehouse outlet in Hempfield Township over by, I call it Toys R Us, but Toys R Us.
Maybe not much longer.
Yeah, right. But talk a little bit about the warehouse outlet.
Well, let me have a parting shot on the mortgages. So,
okay,
since we have the mortgages, we do recover some money from that. It helps offset the construction costs. Now, it's a subsidized mortgage, so we certainly don't make any money on a house that we rehab and sell. And when it's subsidized, we're talking about a relatively small amount trickling in over the 30 years of a mortgage. So it's definitely helpful in that it covers and it pays back some of our construction costs. So when we take a donation, we spend it the first time building a house, and it goes into that house, and then we get it again coming back in that mortgage, and we spend it again. So it's a really nice way to capture and build the community that we're able to get some of that back. Now, that said, it's a subsidized mortgage, so we're not talking about huge numbers here, and it's slow. So fundraising is absolutely critical for what we do. And as you said, Chad, our thrift store over in the WOW outlets is our single biggest source of fundraising.
Tell the listeners a little bit about the WOW outlet store.
Absolutely.
I mean, what do you sell? What
a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
We call it the warehouse outlet. It's at the end of the plaza, right next to WOW outlets. If you go in there, we're open Thursday, Friday, 10 to 6, Saturday, 9 to 3. And it's a thrift store that's focused around building materials and home furnishings. So hard furnitures, all kinds of building materials, from been sitting in a garage for years to a scratch and dent or a customer return that's essentially brand new from a store.
And how much of the proceeds that are coming from the warehouse outlet, how much is going to Habitat for Humanity?
Everything. Everything. It's owned by Habitat. It's not a third-party store that donates or anything like that. It is our store. So of course we have cost to cover, rent and things and keeping the lights on. But every cent that comes in on proceeds goes back to building affordable housing in Westmoreland County.
And I would understand that might be a great spring cleaning opportunity, right?
Oh, definitely. We do great on spring cleaning on both on your donation end and your sales end. So if you're thinking about cleaning out a garage, a basement, an attic, Aunt Susie's furniture that's been sitting in your attic for 10 years, we're a great source for that. You can come donate it to us. It's a charitable contribution, cleans your house out. We'll sell it back to the community, and that money goes to pay for affordable housing.
Does it have to be a new product?
No.
No, it doesn't have to?
So, no, we love when new product comes in, and we get a good amount of it thanks to a lot of generosity in the retail and business community. So if you own a business and you've been staring at some inventory that's not moving, consider donating that for the contribution. But we take a little bit of everything, a lot of old tools, furniture that's still usable, anything in that. If it has a use, if it's usable, we probably want it.
So those listeners that are thinking about maybe a spring project, what give some examples of what those listeners might be able to acclimate their spring projects on?
Lots of windows and doors, all kinds of random tools and plumbing fixtures. We have a great partner in Lowe's that often gives us customer returns of bathroom vanities and toilets and things like that. Totally unused stuff that just came back to the store that they are unable to sell for whatever reason. Home Depot is also very generous with us in that way. And we have quite a list of different businesses that bring us things, again, that they can't sell for some reason or excess inventory. Then you said on the building material front, that's a mixed bag. It's whatever shows up. One day there'll be there'll be a whole pallet of insulation, and then you won't see it again for 6 months.
Right.
It's a mixed bag. But then one of the great things we are talking about for the spring is Ecotone paint. This is a recycled paint that we sell. So it's not a bunch of old paint slopped together. It's totally remanufactured. A company over in Ohio does this. And because their costs are low, our costs are able to be low. This is our single purchased inventory item that we sell.
Right.
But we're able to sell it for $13 a gallon, which is just absolutely killer. And it's great quality stuff. Limited colors. That's the downer. But great quality stuff. I painted my house with it last year and was thrilled and spent a fraction of what it would cost to buy paint from a traditional paint store or one of the big box retailers.
So if you're listening today, just make sure you stop up at the WOW outlets for Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We're talking with Dan Giovannelli, Executive Director of Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity. Dan, you are running the organization. You are the one that is the executive director, yes, but I running a not-for-profit organization myself, I understand that there needs to be a lot of people that are working as volunteers and helping you too. So anyone that's listening out there, tell them how that they can become involved with Habitat.
We have a huge variety of volunteer opportunities. We do a lot of different stuff. We build houses. We have a thrift store. There's all of the kind of paperwork and fundraising stuff that goes into a nonprofit organization. We're working with families, so we do a dash of social services. We do a lot of different stuff. So if you're interested in helping out, if you're concerned about housing, check us out. We'll find something that's a fit. We take volunteers of all skill levels, as long as you're willing to get dirty and work hard, on our housing construction, and are 16 years old or older. And in our thrift store, we take volunteers of all stripes. It's a really fun environment, from sorting all of those random donations to helping out customers. And then, of course, we're an organization. We have a board of directors that are all volunteers. We have committee members that help us out on everything from helping with our bookkeeping to hosting fundraisers, to helping to find families that might be in need and looking at the housing applications. So really, whatever your interests is, if you're concerned about housing, let us know. There's probably a fit for you.
If somebody's listening out there and they want to connect with you, what is the best way to connect with Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity?
We're on Facebook, of course, Facebook at CWHFH. We have a website, again, CWHFH, Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity, and it's a .org. You can, of course, Google us and get us through the website or Facebook. If you send us a message, we'll get you back pretty fast on that through Facebook. Our general phone number is 724-523-0308.
Dan, we're getting to the end of the show. One of the questions I like to ask is whenever we have guests on Westmoreland Community Connections, what do you think the biggest impact that your organization has had on Westmoreland County?
We're working on it. Always for it on that, of course, Chad. But there's a lot of folks out there that are having a hard time with their housing. Either they're having a hard time securing a house, or they own a house and are having a hard time maintaining it. We didn't touch on that, but occasionally we do home repairs for low-income folks that own homes. So last year, between our home repairs and placing folks in their new homes, we were able to help more families in 2017 than we did in, about 10 years before that. So
wow.
We're experiencing a lot of growth, which has been fantastic. And that's through the generosity of our volunteers, our board members, our shoppers at the WOW outlets, at our warehouse outlet. So we onward and upward.
So how many houses did you do?
We repaired about a dozen houses,
Okay.
and we wrapped up construction on 2,
Okay.
and we're wrapping up these ones, and we are in the acquisition process on our next properties. So we are trying to grow that out, and we're hoping to complete 3 to 4 houses this year, and maybe 4 or 5 next year. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But always looking to grow on that. Unfortunately, our capacity is way under what the need is. There's a lot of folks out there that need some support, and we're working on it. So we've been really pleased with the progress and are really excited and looking forward to more growth and being able to support more families.
Well, Dan, I'll give you the last comment. Is there anything that you would want to let our listeners know about Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity that we didn't cover?
Oh, that's broad.
That's a lot. I set you up. I paint you in a corner, right? That's a 2-hour show.
That's a 2-hour show. I think we got a lot of it. I mean, I think the big thing for me is folks are really generous when you stop and think about it, and it's easy to look around and not see things, but there's a lot of folks that need a little bit of support out there, and it's often more approachable to help and support those people than we think. Sometimes we don't see it, or sometimes it's easier to pretend we don't see it. And if we think about all of the ways we're blessed in our own lives, and think about how with a bit of generosity we can make a big difference in somebody else's life. We're one avenue for that, and I'd love to have you. Housing isn't your thing. There's lots of other great places you can do that, but this is certainly a week to be thinking about it.
Well, Dan, thank you very much for being on Westmoreland Community Connections. Thank you for the work that you do, the impact that you're having on Westmoreland County, and the impact that your volunteers are having on the county. You've been listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We've been talking with Dan Giovannelli, Executive Director of Central Westmoreland Habitat for Humanity. If you want to reach the Habitat for Humanity, it's 724-523-0308. That's 724-523-0308. Or find them on the web at cwhfh.org. That's cwhfh.org. You've been listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Join us next week, same time, same place, for another edition of Westmoreland Community Connections. Thanks for listening, everyone.
This has been Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings in and around Westmoreland County. Join us again next week on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB.
Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission.